I will go ahead and get us started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Jill Found. I am the Assistant Director for History, Education, and Research here at the Center for Civil Rights History and Research at the University of South Carolina. We're delighted to have you all on with us virtually this morning for our Brown Bag. We're really excited about the research that we're going to share with you as part of the Black and Garnet project. I'm not going to talk too long here at the beginning. I just want to give you a little bit of intro to what we're going to be talking about today, and then I'll hand it over to everyone else. So Dr. Donaldson, our executive director, will start us off with a little bit of background about researching African American history at the University of South Carolina, and how we sort of got to this Black and Garnet project that the center has been working on. It is an ongoing project. It is a multifaceted project. And after Dr. Donaldson gives us a little background, we'll have three of our different research assistants talk about the work that they have been doing over the past year or so, or longer in some cases, and the different ways that intersects with this project. So you'll see a few different facets of this research from different perspectives and get to hear from some of our research assistants, which I'm really looking forward to. So without much further ado, I'm going to hand it over. We're delighted to have questions, but I am going to ask that everyone saves their questions for the very end of the presentation. And at that time, we'll have time for questions. All right, now without further ado, I'll hand it over to Dr. Donaldson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Found. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our ongoing series, Brown Bag series. And I'm excited today to set the stage for our colleagues who will talk about ongoing work to document the history of African American life and culture at our University of South Carolina. This is the 10th anniversary of the Center for Civil Rights History and Research. And so we're excited that this series is a part of that 10th anniversary observation. And given that it's been 10 years since the center's development, part of what I want to do this afternoon to set the stage for our colleagues is really to walk through those individuals and organizations at the university who have done the groundwork of documenting the history of African American life and culture really over the last 50 plus years. Dr. Jill, you can get the next slide. As many know, one of the most notable moments in the history of our university is the desegregation of our campus on September 11th of 1963. As legal efforts were underway to break down racial barriers at major institutions in the Deep South, a reporter named John Henry McCrae wanted to remind his readers that there was an earlier period of desegregation on the campus of the University of South Carolina. And so what you see on the screen is an article that was written in the Afro-American newspaper in 1961 by John Henry McCrae. And John Henry McCrae references another gentleman whose name was C.C. Scott, who's on the right. C.C. Scott was a graduate of our university. He graduated in 1876. He was very proud of his time on campus. But by the turn of the 20th century, he was very much aware that the history that took place in that short window of time was being both challenged and erased. And so in 1911, the Reverend C.C. Scott writes a lengthy editorial detailing in explicit detail who those individuals were and their achievements on campus. And so part of what we want to today, as we acknowledge African American History Month, is really to acknowledge those individuals who were forward-looking in documenting the history of our campus. Jill, go to the next. Among those individuals was one of my mentors, Dean Willie Hereford, in 1971. He joins the faculty of our university as the first director of the African American Studies program, which is now a tenure granting department. Dean Hereford was uniquely positioned for this role. He was also a trained archivist. And so from the very beginning of his time on campus, he was working with his students to document the history of African American life on campus. And today we're very fortunate that his records are now housed in the South Carolina Library. Next slide. Another individual who was also quite pioneering and quite beloved was Dr. Grace Jordan McFadden, who was the first African-American woman tenured in what is now the College of Arts and Sciences. Dr. McFadden was also a pioneering public historian She had a very successful oral history project called The Quest for Human Rights. In that oral history project are individuals who sought to enter the University of South Carolina between Reconstruction and 1963. In addition to her oral history work, Dr. McFadden had a number of public programs on campus where she brought pioneering students and faculty to share their memories. And we're fortunate that many of those programs are now a part of our moving image research collection at the university. Next slide. Another important turning point in our university's history took place in 2001 as the university celebrated its 200th anniversary. You will see on the screen two important books that came out in 2001, one by Harry Lassane and another called Carolina Voices by Carolyn Madeline and Catherine Reynolds. In both of those works, they document the experiences of African Americans on campus throughout its 200-year period. Also, there was a very robust website, and these are just screenshots of that website that existed over 20 years ago. And we're working now to try to recover the content of that website from that time period. The next slide. One of the important outcomes of that anniversary celebration was the development of a new publication called Living the Dream that was written by a colleague in the School of Social Work, Dr. Sadie Logan, who was an I.D. Quincy Newman Endowed Professor. Dr. Logan, in partnership with Benny Dees Moore, researched the history of African American life on campus at the university and published this volume called Living the Dream. And at the same time, our colleagues in Student Affairs developed a new exhibit that was installed outside the Russell House Ballroom called the African American Presence at USC. What is there now is on the screen was a revised version of that installation from 2001. Next slide. As we talk about documenting the history of African American life and culture, we cannot do justice to that topic without speaking of the important contributions of one of my colleagues, Dr. Belinda Littlefield. She and I joined the faculty together 26 years ago and worked very closely on a number of public history projects. Dr. Littlefield later directed the African American Studies program, and also she chaired the 50th anniversary observations of desegregating the university in 2013. As part of that effort, Dr. Littlefield led an important installation on our campus called the Desegregation Garden, which is now next to the Osborne Administration Building. She later became the co-chair of the Presidential Commission on the history of our university that has a lot of very important recommendations about what we can do to properly recognize and acknowledge African American life and culture on our campus. Those recommendations are widely available online. Next slide. As a result of Dr. Littlefield's efforts with the 50th anniversary of desegregation, she pulled together a number of students and colleagues working on African American history at the university. And out of those series of meetings, there emerged a very important volume called Invisible No More that was co-edited by Dr. Robert Green and Dr. Tyler Perry. And a number of colleagues, both on campus and beyond, contributed to that important project. The afterword of that book was written by Dr. Honoree Monteith Treadwell, who used her afterword as now the foreword of her new memoir entitled Come Along With Me, that we highly recommend as well. Next slide. When I came to our university 26 years ago, I had no real interest in doing public history. And as many may now know, that has become a very important part of my career on campus. And ironically, the introduction to public history took place when we marked the 200th anniversary of our university. And students asked me to do a series of presentations about the history of African American life at our university. And that photograph you see in the middle is from 2003, when I did just that at Preston College. And then from there, we developed a series of programs where we developed a walking tour on campus that you'll now hear the new iteration of that as well. And we also began to develop a series of public history projects around the African American neighborhoods that were adjacent to our university, most notably Ward 1 and Wheeler Hill. And from that project, a series of exhibits have taken place and tours of those communities. Next slide. While at Preston College, I took part in a protest on campus. And that protest was called Vision 2020. Students marched from the Longstreet Theater to the Osborne Building. As they marched, certain faculty joined them. And one of the demands of the students was that the university take seriously an effort to document the full history of our campus. And they were explicit in calling for proper recognition of the history of enslaved persons on our campus. And so in 2017, that request was acknowledged, and there is now on our campus signage that documents to a degree the experiences of enslaved persons on our campus. We'll talk more about that. But I'd like to say that that effort by students and others advocating for a complete history of our university has remarkably changed the landscape of our campus. And Jill, the next slide. And so almost within quick succession, we begin to see a series of public acknowledgments of individuals and people on our campus who paved the way. Most notably, there is now an amazing statue of Richard T. Greener, the first African-American professor, and we can talk later how all that came to be and all the important faculty and students who were in part of that effort. There is now a new building on our campus in the Vista area named for Celia Dow Saxon, who received her normal degree credentials at our university. And of course, most recently, a statue of the first three African Americans from 1963 that is now on the horseshoe. The next slide, Joe. As part of the work we do at our university, and you'll hear more about this later, we are actively working to build archival collections, to process those collections, to digitize those collections and make them available to the public. And two collections that are directly connected to the Black and Garnet Project are the records of Dr. Harry Wright and Luther Batiste, who were the principal founders of the African American Studies program. Some parts of Dr. Wright's career is now on display here in the Hollings Library in a health and rights exhibit. And Luther Batiste has been integral to our work on campus. In addition to founding the African American Studies program, the next slide, Jill. 55 years ago, Luther Batiste was the campaign chair of a young man named Harry Walker from the Greenville area. And 55 years ago, in 1971, Harry Walker becomes the first African-American president of the USC student body. And with the Batiste collection and with the collection of Harry Wright, we have a good bit of material about Harry Walker's career. But in addition, Harry Walker himself remains quite active on campus, and he's worked very closely with the Civil Rights Center and other organizations to document the history of African Americans in the post-1963 period. And that is an ongoing effort on our part. The next slide. And this is just one photograph of a recent event that took place on campus where African-American graduates of our university came back for a series of reunions. And as part of their reunions, they have now begun to share their stories and also important archival content that will help us expand the Black and Garnet Project. And the next slide, which I think may be the last one for me, it is. So you've heard a great deal in the short period of time about those who went on before. What we're excited about today is to showcase our colleagues who are actively working on the Black and Garnet Project. This has become not only efforts that have led to exhibits, it has led to award-winning research presentations. It has also led to walking tours that you'll hear about in a moment. So we're excited that you're now going to see a new generation of young scholars who are carrying forward on the tradition of Dean Hereford, Grace McFadden, Dr. Belinda Littlefield, and others. So Dr. Jill, I think I'll stop there and transition to the most important part of today's presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Donaldson, for that introduction and that background. On the shoulders of giants are our next speakers, and our first research assistant who's going to share her work is Ebony Belton. So Ebony, go ahead and take it away.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ebony, and I'll be sharing some of my research for the Black and Garnet walking tour, If These Bricks Could Talk, walking on Marion. Next slide, please. So how do we get to the point of creating this tour? It actually starts with me being here in undergrad. So I graduated from the University of South Carolina with my degree in history with a minor in African American studies and a cognate in secondary education. in 2021. And throughout my time at the university, what I noticed, of course, all throughout the year are campus tours. However, what I wasn't noticing or hearing rather was the acknowledgement of things that Dr. Donaldson has prefaced in this presentation that were not present on campus to talk about the African American experience from the time of enslavement here at the university all the way up until the modern era. So I was very angry, but of course, being angry, you really can't do anything. So you have to turn that angry into activism in some cases. So I had my own form of personal activism. I would actually go and hijack the tours a little bit. I'll be nice, I'll be polite, I have manners, but I would wait until the tour guide would stop talking. And then I would go up to the Black families and their prospective students. And I would ask, like, hey, did anybody tell you about the statue? Oh, that's our first Black professor. Did anybody tell you about the two integrations of the university? Oh, well, let's go and do that. So I would literally take people from the tour and lead them on what we are now going to launch here quite soon for our tour, Black and Garnet. Next slide, please. So here's just a map of the tour. It has 12 stops. It's roughly about 45 to 50 minutes. And the majority of the tour is on the horseshoe. And today we'll be highlighting stop number 10, which is in reference to two stories about the historic bricks that we all walk on when we are on the horseshoe. Next slide. So this is a picture of the horseshoe in the 1870s, because prior to the first brick paving project, there were only dirt paths and sidewalks to get to where you need to go for the university. Also, just as a point of reference, the horseshoe was the only piece of the university at this time. Next slide. So by 1931, you have an English professor named Havila Babcock who would initiate this first brick project. And important to note, because it's 1931, that it is during the earlier years of the Great Depression. And due to the Great Depression, the state legislature was not providing any funds for this new brick paving project. So she decided that the student body should volunteer to lay bricks on the outermost paths to do so. So they actually got enough money between different organizations on campus to purchase bricks and then also learn how to pave them at the same time. Now, of course, it says here on this article, there's no class in bricklaying at USC, and students are busily engaged every afternoon in doing that very thing. But of course, they did have some guidance from professional brick masons. And one of those brick masons was a Black man named Marion E. Evans. Next slide, please. So Marion E. Evans, so the first little picture we have here at the top image is the city directory from 1927, and you can see it says Marion. That S is a typo, but if you look at your keyboard, S and E are very close together. And it says he's a bricklayer and he lives at 1106 Pine Street. And we can see the same being said for the 1930 census, with him having his home at 1106 Pine Street, which is in the Waverly community. And Waverly is a historic, or at that time was a majority Black middle and upper class neighborhood, and only just blocks away from the university. Next slide, please. So with the help of Marion Evans, he was able to guide these students. Once again, remembering this is a white student population. The last time we saw African American students here on the campus was 84 years ago at that point. And he gave them this on-site training. But what you're seeing here in these images are initials and a date. So of course, 1931 being when the brick project started, and then HB being a nod to Havila Babcock with her initials. So you had people who were important to the university, or those who donated money for bricks, such as different Greek letter organizations, white Greek letter organizations here during this time. And all throughout the campus, or rather the historic horseshoe, you see this. However, there is a set of bricks that are really hard to come by, or rather you walk over them completely and don't even realize what you're seeing. And we can go to the next slide so we can see it. And it's a little hard to make out. It's actually over, if you're walking by McKissick, kind of at the intersection of where you're leaving McKissick Museum and going to Osborne, is where you see this. And Jill, you can go to the next slide for me. excuse me, it has the initials MEE for Marion E. Evans. So it is believed that these white students, to honor the brick mason who helped them in achieving the first brick paving project, um, they would put MEE in these bricks. I think it's very wonderful to have that. However, it wasn't until really I graduated that I even realized that these bricks were here to honor him, because all the other bricks on the campus on the historic horseshoe are white painted. So they are in plain sight, and this is hidden in plain sight. So, of course, we want to acknowledge the efforts of Marion E. Evans, and, of course, in a time of segregation where he did have children around this time, and they would have not been able to go to the University of South Carolina if they chose to do so. However, although they were not old enough here at this time, they would have gone to a place called Booker T. Washington High School. Next slide, please. So Booker T. Washington High School started in 1916 as Columbia's only Black high school, and it remained the only Black high school until the opening of C.A. Johnson High School in 1948. And BTW produced thousands of students, thousands of graduates, but it would not integrate until the 1970s. Now, just to give you just a preface for where this is 530 Marion Street. If you're familiar with the university, that is now where the quads are. Well, Ebony, what do you mean that's now where the quads are? I'll be happy to tell you. So, unfortunately, the school closes, and of course, there's way more Booker T. Washington history to tell, but that is not the purpose of this presentation, unfortunately. But the school does close in 1974 due to desegregation happening, and the university does acquire this land, which is also in the Willow Hill neighborhood, which is also a majority Black middle class neighborhood during this time. And the university decides to destroy all the buildings with the exception of the auditorium building. So with doing so, they are now getting to the point where they're about to start the second brick laying project here on the horseshoe at USC. Next slide. And you can see here from this article, the bricks were used in the paving um, of the horseshoe. So these are actually the innermost bricks that we walk on. They're actually probably the more level bricks, not the ones that people often trip on, that are here. And what's just very interesting about it is initially the original plan was for the horseshoe to be restored to its 19th century glory. And for some reason, that plan got scrapped. And they decided they were going to use Booker T. Washington bricks. It's very ironic, historically speaking, being that if you're African American, you can even walk on the university campus. If you're familiar with Asia Wilson, she often tells the story where she's referencing her grandmother who grew up around closer to the university, and she was not able to even step foot on the university. And now we're stepping all of these bricks, and people have no idea that these bricks come from Booker T. Washington High School, which produced so much Black excellence right around the corner from what didn't used to be a part of USC and is now a part of USC because of urban renewal and USC expansion. So, going to the next slide here. So by April of 1976, you have African American students now making a rightful fuss about what's happening on campus. They are facing discrimination. You can see here in this article, they are dismissing 3 Black instructors. And I thought it was interesting because Doc talked about Vision 2020 a little briefly. You can see here on the left side, about 75 Black students gathered at noon in front of Russell House, so kind of having their own form of protest to talk about their dissatisfaction, but also demanding that the Horseshoe Drive will be named after Booker T. Washington because of those bricks being a part of the restoration of the bricks on the horseshoe, and also asked to propose a marker on campus noting that the bricks came from the old high school. Next slide, please. So in 1978, you do have the Booker T. Alumni Association, who would, in conjunction with help from the university, have this plaque put into place. But I think it's important to know, if you know the university's landscape and how it is positioned today, it's really hard to see this plaque if you're not paying attention. It's over by closer to the Fannie Phelps Adams Room, or the direct entrance to the auditorium. And at the bottom of it, it has Booker T. Washington High School building was demolished in 1975. Some bricks from the historic structure were used in the paving of the university's horseshoe. And this is the only physical explanation of that on the campus. And honestly, if you ask me, it's really not on the campus. It's only on the campus, not because they acquired that land. I think it needs to be on more present parts and more visible parts of the campus so people can be aware of that portion of history as well. So with that, I think that might be my last slide on here. But for this portion of it, because of course I have a 12-stop tour that gives, of course, USC history from enslavement to the modern era. But as we leave the historic bricks, what I say here is as we leave the horseshoe, it's important to remember its beauty that it carries, but it also carries the history of Black communities whose lives were shaped and reshaped by the university, and understanding how a lot of these African American stories are hidden in plain sight. So, of course, now you are able, if you are here in South Carolina with us and here at the university, or just going to the horseshoe, you can now experience and understand what it is to actually walk on Marion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ebony, for giving us a brief preview into the walking tour, just a couple of the stops, of which, like Ebony mentioned, there are many more. Um, our next presentation is going to be by Megan Strother, who is going to talk about Black Greek life here at USC. So, Megan, your chance to take it away.
Thank you. Again, my name is Megan Strother, and my presentation today is on Unity as Survival Black Greek Life at the University of South Carolina. I started this research for the Black and Garnet exhibit that we have downstairs in the Thomas Cooper Library, and I was interested in how Black fraternities and sororities built community at a predominantly white institution like USC. I'm a member of the Divine Nine, and I was initiated at an HBCU, Claflin University, so I wanted to see the comparisons or compare the two and see the differences and similarities. This is just the beginning of this research. There is so much more that I need to uncover and need to learn more about. So, yeah, next slide. Okay, so to start this conversation, we must start in the beginning. So in 1970, Zeta Epsilon, a chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi, is chartered here at USC. And they are met with a lot of barriers and, again, things in the way of them wanting to or being chartered. So I got the most information from this particular chapter. Other chapters haven't really given us any of their information. Again, Dr. Johnson mentioned Harry Wright. Harry Wright's papers are where I majority got my information from, which I'm very thankful for. But to begin their story, William Turner is a student at Allen University, and he transfers to USC in 1966, and he introduces Black students to the Divine Nine, particularly Kappa Alpha Psi. So there is a couple Black men at USC that want to become members of Kappa Alpha Psi. And to do that, they need to become a chartering group at the university. So the Interfraternity Council is clear and adamant about Black Greek organizations not being established at the campus. But in interviews that you can see on the left, Negroes Planning Fraternity Colony, the president, Bert Rosen, claims that he is open to the chapter being chartered here at USC, but uses the word colony. So he says a colony is not a fraternity. They can become a colony at USC, and it's a trial period to prove that they are capable of being a fraternity at the University of South Carolina. Now, as a colony, they become an associate member, so they're not full members of the Interfraternity Council. And this information is also on Zeta Epsilon's website. They have to bring their executive secretary of Kappa Alpha Psi to USC, and he is vouching for these Black students at USC to charter Zeta Epsilon. And they are not giving any voting rights after becoming a colony and basically continuously being disrespected. Next slide. Okay, so this newspaper clipping is from the Gamecock, or also from the Gamecock, and it's a feature in the late 70s, 1977. And the main theme of this is just getting a glimpse of what it means to be a Black Greek organization on a PWI's campus. So they interview different members and presidents of organizations and ask them why they, particularly the fraternities, why they left the IFC. So one example of a keg party being hosted at USC. They are to meet certain requirements at or in the interfraternity council that don't line up with their Black fraternity, which is a keg party, and they don't feel like they're getting their money's worth. They are being required to do something that is outside of their organization, basically. So they are splitting from the IFC and joining together. Next slide, please. So this slide just shows you the Kappa Alpha Psi through the years, Zeta Epsilon. In the middle, it is a image from the Garnet and Black yearbook, or all three of them are from the Garnet and Black yearbook. But in 71, which is a full year of them being a colony at the university, a white fraternity is basically disrespecting the chapter and asking where is their budget. They mention chimps in the article. It's a very strange image. Next slide. So this is going to be like a brief timeline of each chapter that comes after Zeta Epsilon. So they open the door and Alpha Kappa Alpha Theta Gamma is chartered November 3rd, 1973. They are an interest group first, a few months before or prior. This image is in the 70s, so this is like their first feature in the yearbook. And it just talks about how they became an interest group and what they've done for the community of KC. Next is Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Iota Chi. They are chartered February 17th, 1973. This yearbook piece just shows them doing a toy dance. They're collecting a toy drive for children in need. And then the third is Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, Zeta Theta, and they are chartered February 23rd, 1974. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next two, Alpha Phi Alpha, Theta Nu, they are chartered March 30th, 1973. So this particular piece was really cool to see. We have that also downstairs in Thomas Cooper. But this is from a presentation, I believe a talent show that the Alphas were hosting, and just to uplift the Black students at USC. And the next is Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Zeta, and they are chartered April 14th, 1973. And this just shows their service and achievement and what they've done for USC. Next, please. So I would like to mention too, before I get into the last two organizations, I did find information on Iota Phi Theta, but it wasn't enough to add to this presentation. Again, that's my apologies. I need to do more research on them. I didn't want to put out false information, but I believe that they were chartered in 2006 here on USC's campus, but I'm not sure if they are still active here. Zeta Phi Theta, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Psi Eta Chapter, January 7th, 1977. And these two photos are also from the yearbook. They show both organizations in the 80s. And then Phi Beta Sigma, Kappa Iota Chapter, chartered November 13th, 1978. Next slide, please. So you got a glimpse of the timeline, and now these organizations are, chartered, and then they see the importance of working together. So the first clip or yearbook page shows AKAs, deltas, and sigma gamma rhos working together, or writes about them working together. They're both chartered around the same time, so it's important to show that they are working together. They're not just um, working by themselves. They're helping students, children, and giving out toys to those in need and doing it together. And then Omega Psi Phi and Phi Beta Sigma, they're working together in the 80s. This is the 85 edition of the Garnet and Black, and they are doing a blood drive in this image. And then this last image is pretty cool to me. This is the first image, and Julio actually helped me find this, but this is the first image of the Panhellenic Council. And outside of Iota Phi Theta, everyone is featured. Everyone is representing their organization and they're working together. It's a beautiful picture. And this is 1979. I believe that's all of my slides, but next slide, please. Yes. Ultimately, this research shows that Black Greek life at USC was not just social, it was foundational, and it created belonging, challenged institutional barriers, and left a lasting imprint on the university's history. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was really wonderful. All right. Our last research assistant who's going to present, definitely not least, is Julio Domingo, who's going to talk about Black students and journalism here on campus. Julio, take it away.
Hello, everyone. So I will be talking about Black Rap and student journalism. So Black Rap was a student publication published during the late 1960s, early 1970s, and then journalism during this time period. Next slide, please. So to start off, I kind of want to give some background information of what brings us to Black Rap. So during the late 1960s, early 1970s, across the United States, there was a student-led movement called the Black Campus Movement that was occurring across both PWIs, predominantly white institutions, and historic Black colleges and universities, HBCUs. And so this was a movement where Black students actively fought for representation and equity on campus. So they fought for various things, such as implementing Black studies in the curriculum of these universities, hiring more Black faculty, enrolling more Black students, and then just the creation of Black student organizations on campus. So here at the University of South Carolina, the Black Campus Movement that occurred during that same time led to the creation of the Association of Afro-American Students, which is now known as AAAS, or the Association of African American Students here at USC. And it was established in 1968, shortly after the passing of Martin Luther King Jr. And so AAAS was not just a social organization, it was more than that. It was a political organization where they, again, advocated and fought for representation for Black students across all aspects of campus. And so one of the initiatives that AAAS had was creating a student publication to keep their members informed, but also the local community as well. So they created this student newsletter called Black Rap, and it was a bi-monthly student newspaper. And the first edition came out in October of 1968. And this student newsletter featured various things. So it featured events that AAAS hosted and also collaborated with other students across the city of Columbia. So most closely Allen University and Benedict College, and also highlighted current events that were going on here at USC, and but also in the city of Columbia, in the state, and the nation. So they often talked about different events that were going on here on campus and different incidents that they were facing as well. And other stuff that they included in this newsletter were original poems and pieces by the members of AAAS and also the staff members of Black Rap. And then also they included interviews that they conducted with prominent civil rights leaders and Black leaders here in the city, and then also included excerpts of speeches by important leaders as well. Next slide, please. And so this clipping here is the introduction page of Black Rap, which came from the first issue, which again was published in October 1968. And so I thought this was really interesting because in the introduction page of Black Rap, they state why they created, or the members of AAAS created this publication and the need for this publication. So towards the second to last paragraph of this, on the left side of this clipping, I'm just going to read it out loud so you guys can hear the purpose of Black Rap. So the purpose of this paper is to provide a liaison between Black students and the community and to serve as a medium for the expression of student thought. We hope that through Black Rap, the community will better understand us and will unite us in our common struggle. This paper is for Black people, by Black people, and in the vernacular of Black people. So rap brothers and sisters. So with this introduction that, or opening statement that they gave us in this introduction page of Black Rap, we see that this paper has purpose. It was created with intention. Um, the reason why AAAS was created, again, was to provide a space for Black students to unite and come together, but also to, again, advocate for representation across all aspects of campus. And so with Black Rap, that helped the members of AAAS be aware of what was going on here on campus, but again, larger issues that were impacting the African American community as well. And also giving those who subscribe to the newspaper um, a chance to also understand the experiences of these students that were going and attending the University of South Carolina during this time. And then also on the right side of this introduction page is the names of the students who contributed to Black Rap. So all of these students were members of AAAS, or this organization that produced Black Rap. And I will be discussing a couple of these people, or highlighting some of these people in a bit more later in my presentation. But yeah, no, next slide, please. So yeah, moving on. So some common themes that just stood out as I read through the editions of Black Rap that we have. So we have volumes 1 and 2 of Black Rap. So that ran through from 1968 to 1970. And the majority of these editions or issues come from the papers of Dr. Harry Wright. And so as I was reading through the newspaper or student news letter, I identified some common themes that just kind of stood out to me. And so here I identified some themes and then some examples of those themes. So the first theme being the role of Black students, groups, and organizations. So oftentimes through the pieces that the Black Rap staff members wrote, they often talked about the role of Black students attending the University of South Carolina and what was the reasoning of why they were here in the first place and what they should be doing with their education as well. And then also discussing the role of Black student organizations such as AAAS and why the formation of that organization is very important and what the organization should be doing as well. Secondly, is the advancement of the African American community. So they often talk, staff members of the newsletter often talked about the ways that and identified ways of how they can help advance the African American community here at USC, but in also the larger Columbia and South Carolina state as a whole. Third is collaboration and unity. Pieces of Black Rap often talked about the need to collaborate with other students in the Columbia area, so other Black students in the Columbia area. So again, students from Allen and Benedict, and then also the local high school areas. And so we also as I was going through Black Rap, I also saw some events that they created with students from Allen and Benedict. One of them being a fashion show that they co-hosted with the schools as well. And then lastly is awareness and consciousness. So through different pieces that the staff members wrote, they often talked about the need of keeping the members of AAAS aware of what was going on campus, but again, issues that were going on in the state and in the country as well. So often highlighting different events that were going on in the state, such as the Orange Rig Massacre, the Charleston Hospital workers strike, and then also national events such as the Vietnam War and the impact it had on Black soldiers. And then consciousness as well. So just keeping aware, keeping members and readers of the newsletter aware of what was going on, and then just the impacts that it had on Black students and Black lives as a whole. Next slide, please. So next, I want to highlight some clippings from Black rap and some of my favorite, honestly, some that I just found really interesting. So this first image is titled MEF, and it was written by Redfern. So I'll be talking about him more in a bit, but MEF stands for Metropolitan Education Foundation. And so I kind of want to give a little background information on that. So the MEF was an organization created by the University of South Carolina and the City of Columbia. It was a organization that was established again in the early 1968 time period, and it came right after as well of the passing of Martin Luther King Jr. And it was created to ease racial tensions in the city and to provide educational and recreational activities for Columbia's poor neighborhoods. Um, and so student volunteers here at the University of South Carolina, both Black and white students, they volunteered to basically tutor and mentor students from these neighborhoods that the MEF was targeting. And so the MEF organization had different site locations across the city of Columbia, but also the greater metropolitan Columbia area. So they had site locations out in West Columbia and the Casey area as well. And so Redfern, he wrote a piece on how he felt about the MEF as a whole. And basically he was questioning how the MEF is actually not solving the root causes of these issues that the students are actually facing, the ones who the MEF is supposedly trying to help. So that's what that piece is about. The second piece on the screen is talking about the history of African American students here at the University of South Carolina. So again, this piece came out in the late 1960s, so you can already see efforts by students of trying to ensure their fellow peers know that there is African American students who have already attended the university during the Reconstruction era here at USC, and then in 1963 with the enrollment of Monteith, Anderson, and Solomon. The third piece is titled Black Literary Exchange. And so I thought this was really interesting because, again, during this time, there was a lack of Black studies here on campus, and then the lack of Black literature on campus. So with this clipping, members of AAAS basically did calling for their members to bring in different literature and information on Black history and Black life as a whole. So other members can check these materials out, and they can all, be educated and be aware as well. So I thought that was really cool to read about and to see that they have a program that they implemented like this. And then the fourth image is a cover of the high school edition of Black Rap, which I thought was really cool. And again, shows the efforts by AAAS and the members uniting Black students as a whole as well. Um, and yeah, next slide, please. So this image here is a letter of support written by the members of AAAS in support of the Charleston Hospital workers strike that occurred down in Charleston, South Carolina in 1969. And here, this letter expresses solidarity for the strike, and then also the mobilization of members if needed as well. So I thought that was really cool as well to come across. And next slide. And so now I'll be talking about or highlighting some people who contributed to Black Rap and were staff members of the student newsletter, and were also members of AAAS. So the first person I want to highlight is Redfern. So he was a student here at the University of South Carolina. And so he contributed to various pieces on Black Rap, but also the Gamecock, which is the student newspaper here at USC. Today it's now known as the Daily Gamecock. And so, Redfern, he was a civil rights activist. He ran for city council as well once he graduated college, and then he also still created his own newspaper publications as well. And so he recently passed away as well. So also wanted to bring attention to that as well. Second person is that I want to talk about is Velma Love. So she was a student leader here and was a member of AAAS. And so she helped write the high school edition of Black Rap, which I thought was really cool. And then in this piece here, she wrote a piece for the Southern Afro Chronicle. And here she's talking about her, what it means to be a Black woman during this time period. And then third is Walker Solomon. So he again was a member of AAAS and a staff contributor for Black Rap, and he will also go on to become the president of the organization as well. Next slide, please. And then the other person I want to highlight and kind of transitioning to other publications besides Black Rap is Thomas Richardson. So Thomas Richardson was a staff member for Black Rap. He wrote pieces as well for the student newsletter, but he also was a reporter and columnist for the Gamecock newspaper. And so he also had his own column in the Gamecock newspaper. So I thought that was really cool to see. So in his column, it was titled Blackout. And so in this column, he talked about different things, how it impacted different events that were incidents that were going on at the university during this time, such as the Dixie song and Confederate flag burning controversy that was going on campus during this time. But he also reflected on various campus speakers that came to campus, so such as Dick Gregory, who came to the University of South Carolina and spoke to students during this time. So in this piece here, from one of his columns that he wrote, he is criticizing or questioning the inactions or ineffectiveness of white liberal progressive groups and students during this time. Next slide, please. So keeping on with the Gamecock newspaper, in 1973, which I thought was really cool to come across. So this again came from Dr. Harry Wright's papers. Geraldine Eddings, she becomes the first Black Gamecock editor in 73. So I thought that was really cool. And she was a member of AAAS as well. And so I thought that was really cool to see because 10 years before in 63 or before that, when Montes was trying to desegregate the university, you could see pieces by in the Gamecock newspaper where negative stories about Monteith's entrance to the university and plans to desegregate the university. And then we see 10 years later that we have the first Black Gamecock editor, who is Geraldine Eddings. Next slide, please. And then to kind of wrap up my presentation, I also want to highlight other publications that AAAS published. So the first being Soul Voice. Soul Voice was published around the same time as Black Rap. It came out first published around 1968 as well. Unfortunately, we don't have that many copies of Soul Voice. So hopefully in the future we do have access to more copies of Soul Voice, and it will be really interesting to see the similarities and differences between Soul Voice and Black Rap as well. And then the second publication is The Echo, which was another publication also established or published by the Association of African American Students in 1975. And so, yeah, that brings us to the conclusion of my part of the presentation. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. I just want to highlight again some of important publications that were produced during this time and here at USC and by the Association of African American Students, and then the need of studying these student publications as well and the work of students in the field of journalism.
Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, everyone. We have had some wonderful presentations this afternoon from my colleagues here, but we're sure you all have questions or comments. We'd love to answer those questions. If you're able to type it in the chat, you can certainly do that. If you'd like to unmute and ask, that's also Great.
Dr. Found?
Yes.
Yeah, Daryl Haynes. I'm here in Atlanta, and I was a neighbor of Dean Hereford, and I'm also Alpha. Fall 1977, I was very interested to see Miss Strother's photos, like to talk with her in more detail. One thing I want to point out to her, that slide that she's got from the yearbook, of Panhellenic Council. I know all of those folks. I can tell you there is one noticeable absence. There is no alpha in that particular picture. She mentioned that it shows all of the D9s. We were missing from that photo for some reason. Uh, just wanted to point that out. But this was great. I'm glad that I participated, and I look forward to talking with all of your young scholars. And I really appreciate my fraternity brother, Dr. Donaldson, for what he's doing. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, it must have been like a misprint because in the image of the yearbook, it says everyone's there. But thank you so much.
Yeah, that's on them, not you.
Thank you so much.
And Brother Hayes, thank you for joining us. And so also everyone will know that he's also the son of Dr. Roland Haynes, a very pioneering professor in psychology at the university.
Indeed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Cedric Warren, USC class of 2012. Just want to say thank you to everyone who presented today. I definitely learned something new. As someone who is definitely proud to be, a Black alumni of this school, it's always great to continue to learn about this deep and rich history that we have here. I just wanted to ask Ebony a question about how do we kind of get in contact with her or schedule some of the walking tours that you do. I work closely with some middle school students through art education and entrepreneurship through my small business. And they're often working with us to set up tours because myself and my co-founders are also graduates of the school. So just wondering how we get in touch with that. They'd likely be here late March, early April.
So we have not started the official tours quite
Okay.
yet. We have done, we're about to do a pilot tour here in the next couple of weeks. But I believe Dr. Found will have more information on that than I will.
Yeah. Hopefully by that time, late March, April, we would be ready to give that tour to your group. On our uh, website, there's a request form. And if you complete that request form, I'll try and drop it in the chat as well. But if you complete that request form and ask for a tour, we can work toward that.
Sure. Thank you so much. And shout out to Megan. Wonderful information too as well. I'm also a member of Theta Nu, Spring 2009. So wonderful presentation too as well. It's great to see that information.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure I was unmuted. My name is Laura Thompson Hall now. Was Laura Thompson Solomon at the time of the first Black rap publication, and I was the typist. And it was just really exciting to see that publication. Yeah, that's me there. I entered USC in the fall of 1965, and that was the first year that I believe that African American students were allowed to enter the university not under a court order. So those were very, very interesting times, very exciting times. Of course, I remember Redfern Deuce, who was a major activist. He kept things stirred up back then. Just lots of memories from those days of coming from St. Johnson High School, of course, from a completely segregated school system, and going into the University of South Carolina and not knowing what to expect there, not knowing if our education had prepared us properly. And as it turned out, we were well prepared for the University of South Carolina. It was just an interesting time of transition for all of us who entered there. We made friends, but those of us in the Black Student Union were very vocal and very intentional about establishing our identity there and making our presence known. as a valued part of that community. We still have very, very vivid memories of course, the Confederate flag being walked across the field at the games, and other kinds of experiences that were not supportive of where we were. And just wanted to thank you for this presentation. I missed the very first part of it. We had an earthquake out here in the Irmo area just as this was starting. So I just thank you all very much for presenting this history and helping me walk back through the old days of my life. Thank you.
Ms. Hall, thank you. We felt that quake on campus too. And the
Oh,
world, I'm excited to see you and hear your voice. And
thank you.
look forward to talking to you further. And our team should note that Ms. Hall's father is a very proud graduate of Booker Washington class of 1939.
That's right.
We asked to interview him before his passing. And also, I want the team to know that her mother once worked at Florence C. Benson School, which is a school
Yeah.
we're currently renovating. So we have a lot to talk about.
Oh, very good. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Well, hello everyone. This is Cassandra Elliott, and as always, I enjoy everything that you all put on, and I was really, really happy to be able to see the portion about the sororities and fraternities. And I dropped some information into the chat. Um, at the time of Iota Chi being chartering, the president of Columbia Alumni, Dr. Donaldson will know very well, was Sarah Rosina Lucas. And so that is one of her claim to fame. She used to always talk about that as the historian for Columbia SC alumni. A lot of this is documented. And like I said, we do have some of our members who were on the charter line of that particular of Iota Chi. And also, I wanted to ask again, Ebony, what was the name of that bricklayer? I didn't write his name down.
Marion E. Evans.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I thank you all so very much. I really appreciated all of this that you all have done. And I'll see you all later.